Good morning, children. Today I'll continue with the chapter Respiratory System. This is your 8th video class. And last day we were doing with the different parts concerned with the respiration and breathing mechanism. And just now I'll begin with the gaseous exchange. Now the air from the atmosphere, it is taken through our nostrils and it goes into our lungs. Okay, the air from the atmosphere, it is breathed in through our nostrils and goes into our lungs. So oxygen enters our lungs. Then at the same time, what happens that after the air enters into our lungs, that is the oxygen, then carbon dioxide at the same time also is excreted out by the lungs. So these processes, they are continuously going on in our bodies. 24 hours it goes on. And it is known as gaseous exchange. So oxygen is taken in, carbon dioxide is given out. So with the help of the lungs, this is called gaseous exchange. Now this process is carried on by a system of tubes, tubular passages. And it is called air passages. Now all these air passages, it ends up into millions of sac-like structures. In the last class I had told you about it. The sac-like structures are called alveoli, singular alveolus. So the oxygen enters our blood system with the help of the capillaries present in the alveolus. And one of the very important functions of our blood is to transport oxygen from one part of the body to the other. And at the same time, carbon dioxide also from the different parts of the tissues after respiration, the carbon dioxide gas which is collected, so that comes back via the blood back into the lungs to be excreted, eliminated off or excreted off. So blood has got a very important function of transporting oxygen from one part of the body to the other. Now this happens because there is a respiratory pigment present in our blood, that is hemoglobin. It is present in our RBCs. Hemoglobin is present in our RBCs, red blood corpuscles. And this hemoglobin, it combines with oxygen. So the respiratory pigment, it acts as a respiratory carrier. That is, it combines with oxygen. So this hemoglobin, it combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin in the blood, in our blood. And the oxygen is delivered to various organs of our body. So that oxyhemoglobin, it gives away the oxygen and hemoglobin again is restored in the RBCs. Again the same process is carried on. So this is one of the very important functions of our blood. Now we come to the breathing mechanism which is carried on in our bodies 24 hours. Normally at rest, an adult person breathes 16 to 18 times per minute. That is in and out. That is breathing in and breathing out takes place in 1 minute around 16 to 18 times. Now what is the breathing mechanism? How we are taking in air and giving out. So that mechanism just now I will tell you. Now what happens? We take in air and that goes into the lungs. And before we again take in air, the carbon dioxide is again pushed out of the lungs. That is, once we breathe in and immediately again before breathing, the air from the lungs, that is from different parts of the tissues, the carbon dioxide which is collected back into the lungs via the blood system. Okay, via the blood, that is the circulatory system, it comes back to the lungs and then it is eliminated off through our nostrils. So this is called breathing. and the air goes into our lungs with the help of the ribs and the diaphragm, the muscles in between the ribs and the diaphragm. So how this mechanism takes place, just now I will tell you. Okay, now there is muscles. There are muscles present in between. This is the backbone. Okay, this is the backbone and these are the ribs. Okay, the ribs over here present. Now in between the ribs there are muscles present. That is called the intercostal muscles. They help a lot in the process of breathing. And the diaphragm also helps in the process of taking in air and pushing out carbon dioxide. So how this mechanism takes place? Now first we will deal with inhalation. Okay? First we will deal with inhalation. Now during inhalation what happens? That means when we gulp in air, when oxygen gets inside our bodies, that is the lungs, then what happens? During that time, intercostal muscles, that is the muscles in between the ribs, they contract. When the muscles contract, then that time what happens? That the ribs, they are pushed upwards and outwards, outwards and upwards. Okay? When the muscles, they contract, intercostal muscles, when they contract, the ribs, they are pushed outwards and upwards. And when the whole thoracic cavity, okay, this is the thoracic cavity. Inside this only the lungs are there. So the heart, the lungs are there inside the thoracic cavity. So when the ribs are pushed out and up, then a large space is created. And when the volume is increased inside the thoracic cavity, what will happen? The air pressure inside the thoracic cavity, it decreases. Why? Because there is less density of air. So air pressure decreases. Now when air pressure decreases, higher pressure, the pressure outside the body is high. So pressure from outside, it will enter inside. Have you understood? So when the ribs are pushed out and up, the thoracic cavity is inflated. That is, it increases in volume. The density of air decreases. Air pressure decreases. But the air pressure outside the body, it is too high. So what happens? The pressure from a higher place, okay, higher pressure will get into the lower pressure area. And the level will become same. So air through our nostrils, it enters into the thoracic cavity. So, and then that is the inhalation process. Okay, air-rich oxygen from higher pressure moves inside the lungs through our nostrils. And that time what happens? The diaphragm, it contracts and it pulls, it is pulled down and it is flattened. That time the diaphragm also contracts, it is pulled down, it is flattened. And because of that, the air space is created and air gets into our thoracic cavity. That is the inhalation process when oxygen gets into our lungs. So this is the whole process of inhalation. Now we come to the exhalation process, that is when carbon dioxide is pushed out of the lungs. Now here what happens? That the intercostal muscles, they relax. Where the intercostal muscles are present? In between the ribs. The ribs are there. This is the rib cage. Okay, the whole rib cage is there. All around it will be there. So in between the ribs are the muscles. Now which muscles? The name of the muscles are intercostal muscles. So during the exhalation process, what happens? The intercostal muscles, they relax. They relax and the ribs, they are pushed downwards and inwards. The ribs are pushed inwards and downwards. And so what happens? The space, that is the volume inside the thoracic cavity, it decreases. Okay? Volume is less. And so what happens? The density of air inside this is increased. That is, a lot of carbon dioxide has collected by that time over here from the different parts of the tissues, okay, because of respiration. So it comes over here. So what happens, this density is increased and the volume is decreased, and then what happens, that the diaphragm, it comes back to its original position, that is its resting position is like a dome, okay, this way curved. So it will come back to its resting position, and what happens, air rich in carbon dioxide, this air which is rich in carbon dioxide, also water vapor is also present. So from the lungs it is forced out, okay, because the density increases over here of carbon dioxide. So the pressure here is more and the pressure outside is less. Outside the body is less, and therefore this carbon dioxide from the lungs, it will be pushed out through the windpipe, that is it reaches the trachea and via our nostrils it is pushed out. That is carbon dioxide comes out during the exhalation process. Have you understood this? Air rich in carbon dioxide from here and water vapor at higher pressure in the lungs is forced out through the nostrils via the trachea, it will come out. So this is the mechanism of breathing in our bodies. Now, what is the percentage of oxygen which is coming inside our bodies and going out from our bodies? You all know that atmospheric pressure is having how much percent of oxygen? 21%. So when we breathe in, 21% of oxygen is there in the air we breathe in. That enters our bodies, that is through the lungs. And when we breathe out, a lesser amount of oxygen is breathed out, that is around 16.4% of oxygen comes out when we exhale out air. Now at the same time, when carbon dioxide, when we are breathing, that is oxygen is going inside our lungs, that time carbon dioxide is also going. So carbon dioxide, the percentage of atmospheric air is how much? 0.03%. So that carbon dioxide also enters our body. That is a small amount, but when we exhale out air, the percentage of carbon dioxide increases a lot because it is a product of respiration in our various parts of the body tissues. So 4.4% of carbon dioxide is exhaled out. So this is the percentage of inhalation of oxygen and exhalation of carbon dioxide during the process of breathing. Now, what are the differences between inhalation and exhalation? So during inhalation, what happens? Intercostal muscles, they contract. Ribs are lifted upwards and outwards. During exhalation, what happens? Intercostal muscles relax. Ribs drop downwards and inwards. The ribs, they drop downwards and inwards. Then diaphragm contracts, is pulled down and then it flattens. Okay, when it contracts, it flattens. But then here during exhalation, the diaphragm is relaxed. And that time what happens? It is pushed back to its dome-shaped structure. The diaphragm comes back to its original dome-shaped structure. Then volume inside the thoracic cavity here. This volume in the thoracic cavity increases because air has gone inside, so it increases. Okay, here the volume inside the thoracic cavity, it decreases. It is shrunk over here because of the ribs. It goes inside and inwards. So downwards and inwards. So what happens? It is lower down here and so the volume decreases. Now the last one is, which is given in your books. Okay, air-rich oxygen enters from higher pressure. Higher pressure is outside the body. Air-rich oxygen enters our lungs from the higher pressure, okay, and moves inside the lungs through our nostrils. And here what happens in exhalation, air rich in carbon dioxide, that is here, air rich in carbon dioxide and water vapor. It will be at a higher pressure in the lungs and it is forced out through the trachea, via the trachea and the nostrils into the outer atmosphere. So this is all about the breathing mechanism which you have studied today. that is inhalation, exhalation, their differences. So you are supposed to know them well, learn them. That's all for today, children. Thank you.